So I wasn't planning on doing a video today, but a recent content creator that goes by the name of Tactical Manager TV, Filippo, good friend of mine. You guys all probably know who he is. He does content mainly surrounding the US men's national team in US soccer. He put out this tweet, which has heads spinning and rolling across social media. Whether you agree with him, disagree with him, do you think CONCACAF is better than Asia or Asia is better than CONCACAF? I definitely personally don't agree with this tweet one bit. And then I put out this response to it. But with Twitter, you only have like a certain amount of words that you can put in a tweet. Thus, I have decided let's do a video talking about this tweet and my thoughts on it. And the whole discussion surrounding is Asia better than CONCACAF. Next to me is the tweet that Filippo did put out after Jordan's huge upset against South Korea in the Asian Cup final. And I also want to give a big shout out to Jordan for making the final. I mean, this is going to be their first ever Asian Cup final, and it's getting me more and more pumped for Iran's match tomorrow against Qatar, and we will be doing a watch along for that, so make sure you guys tune in for it. But in regards to the tweet, this is what he said. Jordan has made it to the Asian Cup final by eliminating Jurgen Klinsmann's South Korea. Now, Jordan made it to the final, and there were people trying to convince me that the U.S. men's national team could not win the Asian Cup. My biggest issue with this tweet is what relevance does Jordan making the final have with the U.S. men's national team, because this isn't a tournament that even remotely involves them. And as well, why does the U.S. men's national team even have to be in this discussion right now about Jordan making the Asian Cup final? I get it. It's cool. Jordan upset South Korea, who are one of the best teams in Asian football, but that just doesn't mean all because Jordan made an upset that makes it an easy competition to win. I think Filippo knows this especially. He's a guy that watches South American football, the tournaments that CONCACAF hold, and there's been plenty of upsets that can happen in a tournament format, all because one team upsets another, makes a crazy run to the final. It just doesn't make the competition weak. Like, I believe, what was that? The 2019 Copa America final, Peru made it all the way to the final. It doesn't mean like, oh, Peru don't qualify for World Cup, so it should be easy. Japan will easily clap in the Copa America. No, it's just, again, it doesn't have much relevance to it. And these kind of tweets are what make me very much dislike US men's national team fans, because of like this arrogance that, one, why does the US men's national team even have to be a conversation in this, and what relevance do they have in it? And two, it doesn't make them like, oh, we can easily be good in AFCON and Asian Cups and stuff. It's like, I don't know. It just does my head in. And I kind of wanted to go through some of the tweets and replies people spoke about on this post. And of course, we all know Filippo. Again, this is no hate whatsoever to Filippo. I love the guy. He's a great person, and I'm good friends with him. He's a great content creator. This was my response to his tweet. So if we go down here, I said this tweet is beyond laughable if you don't watch or know much about Asian football, which, when I mean which you don't, that is me saying, Filippo, you didn't watch much of this tournament, which I think he knows he can admit. I think he's only watched like the last few Korea knockout stage games. Don't talk about it as if you do. If the U.S. men's national team played in the Asian Cup, they would massively struggle. The U.S. men's national team wouldn't even be finalists in the Asian Cup. Just stop. So that was my reply to the tweet. And again, no hate to Filippo whatsoever. That's just my opinion. I just don't like as well that he commented on a tournament he probably hasn't watched much in. And from our conversations, Filippo isn't the most knowledgeable when it comes to Asian football. I think he has a good surface level knowledge, which I think, like, half of, the American fan base probably has as well. So that was my response to it. I thought it would be kind of funny to look through what people said to Filippo, what they said to the tweet. And we all know Filippo is the king baiter, the master baiter. I mean, Jesus Christ, this thing's already at 156K impressions, views on Twitter. We all knew what he was doing. It was relevant to what was going on. And as well, he knows it's going to get clicks and interactions. So, I get where he's coming from in that aspect, but some of the replies that I saw that I felt stuck out most to me, this one's funny, which is the top one. Why are you guys always trying to make it everything about the US? Please stop. Kind of what I just brought up. You're acting like the US performed well regularly outside of CONCACAF, hasn't even been a good team yet. That's the thing is like, to make this claim, this is another point I want to talk about when it comes to the US men's national team, because at the moment they are the standard in CONCACAF right now. I mean, they're constantly winning the domestic trophies. They were the best performers in the previous World Cup. I think right now the mantle is in the US men's national team's hands. They are the best team. They are the standard right now to compare off of when you're talking about the best team in CONCACAF. But like the USA, if a tournament is not in the US, you see that they struggle so much when they don't play on American soil. And that's what annoys me is USA, let's say if the USA were in the Asian Cup, realistically they wouldn't accept it if it wasn't in the United States. And you know they would struggle if it wasn't in the US. They struggle so much in qualifiers, in the World Cup. I mean, the reality is USA only won one game of the previous World Cup, and kinda like their pinnacle moment, their best away fixture under Greg Berhalter was a draw against England in the World Cup. Don't get me wrong, as an Iranian national team fan, I would definitely take a draw against England, but, like, the standard that USA fans put themselves in, like, you can't be like, "We're all this great, we have all this young talent, we have a plethora of great players in Europe," but then you guys can't have a really good away game unless the match is in the United States on American soil. Whenever they're tested outside of the US, they struggle so much in any environment, hostile environments, poor fields conditions, like, I don't know, that's the thing to also bring up. They don't perform regularly in outside of CONCACAF. And then obviously one of the biggest points when I put out my tweet, this is Filippo's response. How'd you all do in World Cups? Which by the way, the last one was hosted in Asia. Yes, again, I don't get why Iran is the main team that most people talk about when it comes to the statement. All because we're the last remaining big Asian team left in this tournament. And like, I get it. Iran has never made it to the round of 16, but we're not the standard of Asian football. Yes, we're amongst one of the better teams, but we're not the standard. And I get it. We lost to the USA. Well, shit. It happens. But there's like conversation behind that. And I think Jack said it in his tweet as well, which we can go talk about too, is like Iran and the USA. Iran barely lost 1-0 to this very talented and all these players play in Europe and all this thing. You can't boast about your team like you guys are so talented. You have so much potential. You guys are going to do such great things. But then you barely beat by the scruff of your necks, barely beat an Iran side that was ridden with political pressures, outside external factors that obviously clouded the team's performances at the World Cup. Different tactics, different coach, which now, when that political pressure has been put aside, the media, the people, the government is not talking in their ears. You're seeing how well Iran is playing and under tactics that maybe suit this team a little bit better under a different voice. But yeah, we're going to always keep talking about the USA and how they beat Iran. Iran's not the standard here. Like, I don't like the logic of, well, USA beat Iran, who are possibly going to be finalists in this tournament. So based off that logic, we're obviously would easily make the final. No, that's not how tournament football works. Some teams are just better in cup competitions. Some teams are better in like a overall points format. And again, if you're going to base off that logic, the USA got destroyed by Germany. Japan destroyed Germany twice within a small span as well. Japan destroyed the USA in a friendly before the tournament. Like, there's all these like whole like, oh, well, this team beat that team. And obviously I put out a tweet as a joke, like beating Japan isn't for everybody. That was me just joking. But using that as your only argument, I think it's just so brain dead in my opinion. Like, give me actual evidence to why you think that. All because Jordan made it to the final doesn't mean, oh, okay, the US could easily win the Asian Cup. No, AFCON's just hecka unpredictable. That's just how it is. Obviously, the better nations in Africa will qualify for World Cups because that's over a period of time. But tournament football, anything can happen. That's how it always is, club and country. It doesn't mean USA can easily do it. I honestly, I would love to see how the United States would do in an Asian Cup, not in the US. Sure, maybe it'd be the one in Qatar. Yeah, they played in the most recent World Cup that was in Qatar against even arguably tougher opponents. I'd love to see it against unorthodox teams like the UAE, Oman, Bahrain, Malaysia. Like, I would just be so interested in it. And I think we all would. And I think Jack makes a good point. Lord Jesus, up above, please let us see the U.S. men's national team versus Iraq in the Middle East. I think Iraq would dunk on the USA. I think they genuinely would if it was played in the Middle East, yes. Jack as well put out this tweet, who I think deserves to be chimed in on this. He as well said, the U.S. would not win the Asian Cup. Just stop. You'd have to win 4 knockout games in a row in hostile environments against teams with legitimate tactics and talents that surpass 99% of CONCACAF. Asian teams are far better than you give them credit. And I think that's a big thing too, is they undermined Asian football. which I think is on the huge on the come up. This tournament, we're seeing how the gap is starting to close from those smaller Asian nations to the bigger Asian nations. I think Uzbekistan's one of them. I think Jordan as well is one of them. Iraq as well could be in that hat. There's many Asian nations that are heavily underrated. It's just because a lot of American media don't talk about them. They just talk about the US. They just gluck gluck suck off Christian Pulisic. So like we get it. US soccer is in the development, this and that. That's why I don't like that he's commented on this because he hasn't watched much of the Asian Cup. He doesn't know a significant amounts of like Asian football in order to qualifying and stuff. I know Filippo's an expert when it comes to South American football, US, CONCACAF. Like I know he knows a lot of his stuff there. But to make this claim, it's just so like brain dead. I know there was one. Yeah, here you go. So this was an interesting take. So Iran are probably the favorites at this point in this tournament. USA beat them in a World Cup on Asian soil a year ago. Pretending like US couldn't win that cup is disingenuous. Again, and I think Jack makes a great point. I love the points Jack makes. I love how bold Jack is when it comes to this stuff. Big shout out to Deadball TV. Different coach, different players, different locations, different stakes. And as well, we could say different circumstances because I think that plays a big part in this. And in my opinion, I think 9 times out of 10, I think Iran would beat the USA. Like, let's say, for example, if Iran, the current Iran team right now that is firing on all cylinders, different coach, different tactics, different circumstances. There's no politics involved because their World Cup was heavily encompassed. I mean, we even saw that if you guys watched Netflix's World Cup coverage called Captains of the World, the whole topic for Iran had almost zero relevance to their football. It was all about political talk. You cannot deny that played such a big factor. Who has seen Iran concede 6 goals in a match in a World Cup? Iran has never played that abysmally in a World Cup before. And then Jack continues to say, it's fine to say it's a possibility because of course it is. The USA is talented. Yes, of course. I think the USA could compete in it. I think USA is always a guaranteed at least quarterfinalist in the Asian Cup. Guaranteed. But I will contest anyone who looks down on the Asian Cup or make it seem like success is guaranteed. And that's what Filippo, I think, kind of is insinuating with it. Make it seem like success is guaranteed. Like obviously, oh, South Korea, Japan, Iran, Australia should easily be winning it every time. No, Iraq won it back in '07. They had a tremendous Asian Cup, but no one talks about it. I mean, obviously that the CBS morning show thought that their win against Japan recently was their biggest win. Like there's very obviously a misconception and not a clear understanding by American media about Asian football. And that's a big problem I have when you make statements like that. And then people continue to go on different coach, different tactic. That's the thing is like you cannot say this argument if you don't know exactly what you're talking about. And again, I genuinely I think it's the most brain dead argument to be like, well, the USA beat Iran in the World Cup. That's so cool. Is that going to be US men's soccer, the nation that there's got to be standards. You guys cannot boast about yourselves that we will be one of the greats. We will be competing in the next World Cup when it's on our soil. But then boast so much about beating Iran narrowly 1-0, a mentally crippled Iran at a World Cup 1-0 and acting like as if like it's the biggest accomplishment in the whole wide world. Congrats, you guys made the round of 16, but there were 3 other Asian nations not named Iran that made the World Cup round of 16. And 2 of them actually put up a hella fight against the final 3 finishers. In Australia, who put Argentina to the sword in their match, and Japan, who put Korea to the sword all the way to a penalty shootout. A team that won it that year in the 3rd place finisher. Obviously, we don't talk about South Korea's match against Brazil, but nonetheless, along the way, those nations had some great, great wins. Iran still was able to beat Wales, who are one of the better teams in Europe. Japan beat Spain and Germany, Australia beating Tunisia, playing pretty well against France, and as well beating Denmark. Like, don't compare Iran as the team in Asian football because we're not. All because we're remaining left in this tournament is we're just having a good tournament. I do think it's going to be a huge accomplishment if Iran wins this Asian Cup, but that team doesn't have much of a future compared to the likes of Japan and South Korea, who I think will be even better in a couple more years' time come that next World Cup. Iran, this is kind of like this is what they've been working for since 2012, 13-ish when Carlos Queiroz arrived. This is their project of hopefully having it was hoping that that last World Cup was that pinnacle moment where they make that round of 16, have that dark horse campaign. and or win this Asian Cup. But the thing is, they don't know. Like that's what annoys me is you don't know that, then don't speak about stuff you don't understand. It's just so brain dead to always just use this argument. Well, we beat this team, so that means we would easily beat that team. That's never how football works. We all know that. That's what annoys me the absolute most about this tweet from Filippo. It annoys me so much. But we all know he knows what he's doing. He's baiting all of us, and he did a great job. But I still think it's a huge point of discussion about Asian football and CONCACAF. There's a reason why we see so many different winners in AFCON and Asian Cups compared to like the likes of the Gold Cup and Nations League, where we always see it be the likes of the USA or Mexico. It just shows there's such a higher competitive level in those other confederations compared to CONCACAF. Yes, the top teams in CONCACAF are really good, but once you go down any farther than the top 3 or 4, the quality decreases such significantly. But when you look at nations in Asia or Africa, the level is just so much better. But again, you would have to actually watch the football from those confederations to understand that. If you actually watch Asian football, it's just unpredictable. And you shouldn't discredit the likes of Jordan or Iraq for, having these upsets throughout this tournament. And USA fans should know that all so well when they've been upset many times by like the likes of Jamaica and Gold Cups and other weaker oppositions. That just happens in cup competitions. Or as well, we mustn't forget when they lost to Trinidad in Trinidad. 9 times out of 10, the USA will win that match, but at that moment, they lost the match. That's how football works. But Asian football as a whole, compared to CONCACAF, there's less of a gap, in my opinion, between the smaller nations and the bigger nations. There's been improvements with Uzbekistan's football, with Jordan's football, with Japan, South Korea. A lot of these nations are developing great players. The gap is starting to tighten here. Unlike with CONCACAF, I mean, there's such a huge gap and there's such a clear favoritism for especially the USA, but for those big nations, be it the USA and Mexico. Obviously, they're the powerhouses, but every single tournament is hosted in the United States. I understand they have the best infrastructures. They have more stadiums and more fans possibly in attendance, but it would not hurt to maybe have a tournament hosted in Mexico. The CONCACAF Nations League is such a small tournament once they get to the latter stage of it. Host one of those in Mexico. Change it up. Have it maybe in Central America. I know it's not going to be the most ideal atmosphere, the ideal broadcasting, but it doesn't always have to be in the United States. It's always in the US. So how much of a challenge is it going to be for the US to constantly pummel Honduras, Martinique, Trinidad, whoever it may be? We rarely see the USA put themselves in uncomfortable environments. US soccer like coddles their team to always like, we can't do that. We can't make accommodations to go play here for other nations to host it. Like that is how you grow, is playing in different environments, not always being the ones that have to own the broadcasting rights, own the hosting rights. But to put out a tweet like this, it does my head in. And a lot of the responses too. Like if you just don't know Asian football, just don't talk about it. And I don't like how people are trying to defend this take from Filippo, more specifically USA fans, with the whole, their only argument, the only one, because they don't watch this tournament, they don't watch Asian qualifiers, they don't watch Asian football, is USA beat Iran, who are the remaining big nation in this tournament. It is a argument, but it's not the end all be all. It trumps the whole thing. There's other Asian nations. There's other Asian nations that did well in the World Cup. Iran is not the standard of Asian football, and Iranians can admit that. We are a historic nation in Asian football, but we are not the standard right now. We are having a really good tournament. In conclusion, all I have to say is Asia is better than CONCACAF, and there's no debate about it. CONCACAF is a federation that is definitely growing and getting better, but is not at the level of Africa or Asia. But boys and girls, I know this was a long rant. There's a lot to discuss. Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments down below about this debate between Asia and CONCACAF, who's actually better. I don't mind if USA fans chime in on this argument, or even Mexico, other CONCACAF followers. Like, I want to know your guys' opinions, but you guys let me know in the comments down below what your guys' thoughts are. Don't forget to smash the like button on today's video. Don't forget, tomorrow's the big day, Iran versus Qatar, Asian Cup semifinals. We'll be doing the watch along, so make sure to be there or be square. But boys and girls, I hope you all have a lovely day.